PR Connections Radio presents.
Welcome to PRConnectionsRadio.com, the voice of new media, and here on Vegas Hockey Hub. I'm your host, Ian Rachiele, and on this edition, we are going to be breaking down and we are going to be discussing here on Vegas Hockey Hub who will win the Western Conference. Now, this has been a video that we've been trying to do for a while now, and since there is still some time left in the regular season, but there are 4 contenders for winning the Western Conference, and we're going to be talking about that and breaking it down here on Vegas Hockey Hub. And this is going to be a really fun show. There's going to be a lot of good scenarios and stuff that we are going to mention here tonight. So we appreciate everyone who watches the show and supports us. Go to PRConnectionsRadio.com, the voice of new media. Check out all the amazing shows on the network. We have about a dozen shows, including Vegas Hockey Hub. So go to PRConnectionsRadio.com. Check out all of the content and go to the YouTube channel, subscribe and like as it supports the network. And if you could follow us on social media on all major platforms, we are there at Vegas Hockey Hub. And you want to follow your host, my handle is right down here at Ian J. Rachiele. Once again, on all major social media platforms, that is my handle right down there. Now, when it comes to who will win the Western Conference, I mean, you really have to stop and really consider what we are seeing at this moment in time. You really have to sit back and reflect on who the playoff teams would be at this moment in time. Like I said before, there is going to be some moving around. There's going to be some shuffling. You know, some of the seeding is even starting to come along at this point, but we still have time left in the regular season for the Western Conference. What we're doing on tonight's show is I'm giving you the 4 options that your host, Ian Rachiele, could see winning the Western Conference and making it to the Stanley Cup final. And the first option is unexpected, a team that really came out of nowhere but has been solid and has arguably the best record in the Western Conference right now. Option B is a team that made it to the Western Conference Finals this past season and has actually done better than what they did the previous year. And then option C was a odds-on favorite. This is a team that is loaded with talent, an organization who has won a Stanley Cup recently. And then option D, we're going to hold that off for later because that's actually going to be your host pick to win the Western Conference. So that's really going to be the 4 options we have here when it comes to who will win the Western Conference. Now, option A, which was unexpected to begin the year, is the Vancouver Canucks. I mean, what else can I say about this organization except what we saw in the preseason, what we saw in the offseason? There was no main correlation or any indication the Vancouver Canucks were going to do what they did this season. They have just been remarkable. They've been running away at the Pacific Division. They have, like I said, one of the best records in all of the NHL. And more importantly, when it comes to the Vancouver Canucks, this is an organization who is running on all cylinders right here, right now. I mean, this is a team that, in terms of momentum, is probably the best when it comes to what we've seen over the last 2 to 3 months. I mean, this is a Vancouver Canucks team that, no doubt about it, has taken over when it comes to this season. I mean, just really stop and analyze the Vancouver Canucks and how they have performed this season. I mean, this is a Vancouver Canucks team that, you know, to begin the year, they had a bit of a hot streak, but some people thought maybe they're going to fall off. Maybe they'll go back down to earth, stuff like that. But no. I mean, the Vancouver Canucks, like I said, they have the best record right now when it comes to this situation. And when you really look at this season, like I said, with all the games that we have right now, I mean, this is a Vancouver Canucks team that has a point percentage of 67%. That is the points right here in the regular season. You also have to really take into account that when it comes to the regulation time record, this is a really good team when it comes to what they do in regulation. They've actually won all but 4 of their games in regulation at this point, which is really impressive. And their goals against average versus goals against is insane. I mean, they have well over 200 goals for and only about 150 against. So the Vancouver Canucks have done really stellar this season, and their records have really backed that up at this point. I mean, when you just look at their recent game they did, I mean, they took on the Winnipeg Jets just a while back. This is a Vancouver Canucks team that, if you're going to give credit to anybody in the organization, Rick Tocchet has to be on that list. Rick Tocchet taking over for Travis Green, taking over for Boudreau. I mean, this is a Vancouver Canucks team that really has been treading water the past 2 seasons. And thankfully, Rick Tocchet, he had a solid second half of the year last year, but I don't think anybody saw what they're doing this year and having one of the best records in the Western Conference. I mean, this is an organization who Rick Tocchet has to get a lot of praise and respect on that end. You also have to say, when it comes to their captain on the team, in Quinn Hughes, who replaced, the leadership he had with Bo Horvat when he went to the New York Islanders. But Quinn Hughes has been a breakout star for Vancouver. He has really established himself as a leader and a face of the Vancouver Canucks. And as somebody who back in January went to the Rogers Arena and actually saw the Vancouver Canucks and saw the arena and the banners and everything like that, this is an organization that is doing it right now. And, they have some good supporting characters alongside Quinn Hughes. JT Miller has had a phenomenal season this year. Elias Pettersson, he has done a really good job as a number 2 in that situation. And even people like Brock Besser and Connor Garland and Niles Hoglander. I mean, there are some players who have really taken off and have actually shown that they can actually be productive on this team. There's also the same organization who Thatcher Demko this season has done some really good work. I mean, this is somebody in Thatcher Demko. Yes, I understand the situation when it comes to injuries. We've seen that happen. But even getting Casey DeSmith as an off-season trade, really before the season kicked off, that was a good move by the Vancouver Canucks. I like what I saw from them in that situation. And of course, I'm not going to go over the entire roster. And I'm not going to talk about, Taylor Myers. I'm not going to talk about the trade they did last month to get Elias Lindholm. But more importantly, when it comes to the Vancouver Canucks, this is an organization that from top to bottom, the leadership has been exceptional. From top to bottom, the Vancouver Canucks have done what they needed to do. They are totally an option. Like I said, them leading in terms of the Western Conference, them having one of the best records in all of the NHL. I mean, really, when you stop and analyze the Eastern Conference, Florida, Boston, New York on that end, they're doing fantastic as well. But the Vancouver Canucks at this moment in time have put in the work and are doing an excellent situation there. So would I be surprised if Vancouver went to the Stanley Cup Finals? No. How would I react to a Vancouver Canucks Stanley Cup Final? I actually would cheer and kind of applaud Vancouver, considering what they have done recently and the fact that the Vancouver Canucks have never won a Stanley Cup Final. Somewhere deep down in my very bitter and very, sour heart when it comes to hockey, I feel like there's a little bit of softness to Vancouver because of the fact that they have never won a Stanley Cup. So Vancouver Canucks, regardless of what happens at the end of the season, they are definitely option A, one of the best records. Like I said again, their goals for and goals against has been incredible this season. So that was option A. Okay, option A, Vancouver Canucks. But then let's keep going. Who would be the next option in the Western Conference? Who would be a team that has a situation where they could win and actually do some good when it comes to the Western Conference? Of course, we're talking about the Dallas Stars led by Pete DeBoer. I mean, this is a Dallas Stars team who last year, in year one of the Pete DeBoer era, made it all the way to the Western Conference Finals. They had a good back-and-forth series with the Vegas Golden Knights, but just came up a bit short. Now, this season, the Dallas Stars have actually kept up that momentum. They have actually done a really solid job at this point when it comes to the organization and what they have accomplished. Now, the Dallas Stars, they have the best record in the Central Division. They look like one of the top-heavy teams out here in the West. But when you really stop and watch the Dallas Stars and look at what their recent game was against the Edmonton Oilers, who would be an honorable mention, by the way, the Dallas Stars have been able to keep up and have been able to hold on and withstand the best up-and-coming teams in the Western Conference. When Dallas goes up against Vancouver, when they go up against Edmonton, when they've had their battles against Vegas, they've been overtime matchups. They've been shootout matchups. That's what Dallas has done. When Dallas goes up against a Winnipeg, when they go up against a Colorado, Dallas is able to hold its own. And majority of the time, they find a way to keep the game close and to sometimes find it in their momentum in Dallas. Now, obviously, the first person that really has to get brought up in this situation is Jake Oettinger. Jake Oettinger has had a phenomenal season. This is a A-class, top-tier goaltender in the NHL right now. I am really impressed with what Jake Oettinger has done in Dallas. I mean, this is a guy who I actually had as my preseason pick to win the Vezina Trophy. And so far this season, him, Connor Hellebuck, I mean, there's a few goaltenders right now who have really shined this season, but Jake Oettinger is one of those factors there. The defense, a veteran in Ryan Suter, which was a good pickup by Dallas. After he leaves Minnesota, after the buyout from one of the worst contracts in NHL history, he gets picked up, and he has been a veteran on a really consistent defense in Dallas they have to watch out for. Their bottom six is a bit shaky. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. Their bottom six is a bit shaky, but that top six in Dallas has been wow in the NHL this season. I mean, when you really analyze the Dallas Stars and their top six, I mean, you have Jason Robertson, who has been a breakout star, has been a superstar in the making for Dallas. Joe Pavelski, he's not playing like a 39-year-old, for sure. I mean, Joe Pavelski is still performing at an elite level with the Dallas Stars right now. You have Roop Hines, you have Matt Duchene, Jamie Benn, Tyler Seguin. I mean, this is a top six and really overall an organization who has found their strengths and have executed when it matters. So the Dallas Stars doing what they're doing right now, I'm not really surprised by it considering what we saw last year. But what I'm a little bit surprised about is how they are doing it. I'm really surprised about how the Dallas Stars have found a way to pick up the wins they do. Because like I said, they've had a good amount of overtime games. In fact, they've had about 9 or 10 this season where they have gone into overtime. They're going into a shootout. They're battling and going for the puck. That is a Dallas Stars momentum there. And that's really what their motto has been, the way they play and their style in Dallas. And a lot of that goes to Pete DeBoer. Now, Vegas Golden Knights fans, you all know Pete DeBoer. I do as well. And this is kind of the usual for Pete DeBoer, regardless of where he is at. If he is in New Jersey, he's in San Jose, he was in Vegas, now he's in Dallas. His first year or two, you will get the best out of Pete DeBoer, okay? I'm not going to accuse him of being a Mike Keenan. I'm not going to accuse him of being a John Tortorella, where, he has a great start out of the gate. Your team does incredible to start out, but then it starts to fizzle away over time. He's not to that level of a Mike Keenan who really goes past his expiration date. But when it comes to Pete DeBoer, it has been well established that he can get your team to a Western Conference final. Pete DeBoer has led teams to a Stanley Cup final appearance before. He did it in New Jersey. He did it in San Jose. And he got Vegas to the Western Conference finals multiple times while he was here. So he's a talented enough coach to get a team to where they need to be. Now, the main question you have to ask yourself, and how we're going to be talking about it here on Vegas Hockey Hub, what players are going to have to step up come playoff time? Is their captain, Jamie Benn, going to have to learn to not, go after and attack guys like Mark Stone in the postseason? I mean, what player is going to have to step up and play on their head? Is their goaltender, Jake Ottinger, going to have to essentially carry the team on his back in terms of goaltending every single night? It's just going to be a question mark with Dallas. What doesn't show up? Will the bottom six kind of fizzle out and be a moot point in the playoffs? Or is the bottom six going to contribute a bit and score when it matters? When is the big moment going to happen? Is the defense going to kind of fall apart? Is the defensive pairings going to have injuries? Because there's still a chance of that happening. But the Dallas Stars are an option here. They're still, like I said, best team in the Central Division right now. They are fighting with Vancouver when it comes to the best record in the Western Conference. Vancouver and Dallas kind of around that area there. But, I mentioned Vancouver for option A as them being a potential Stanley Cup final participant. And the Dallas Stars, I want to sit here and say that I could plausibly see it. I want to sit here and tell you that the Dallas Stars have a really good chance of getting to the Stanley Cup final. But unfortunately, I don't have any trust in the organization. When they made it to the Stanley Cup final in 2020 during the pandemic, during the bubble, that was such an insane level of circumstance that it's kind of been washed from the record of sorts. But when the Dallas Stars are in the playoffs, it's always about what's going to go wrong. Like when it comes to the playoffs with the Dallas Stars, it's always about, okay, what player isn't going to show up? What star is going to not, be on a certain level in the postseason? Is the goaltending going to fall apart? Is the defense going to fall flat? Is the offense not going to contribute? That's what I see with Dallas. So unlike Vancouver, where based off of this season, I could actually see a Rick Tocchet, led Vancouver Canucks making it to a Stanley Cup final. The Dallas Stars, I'm not so confident in. The Dallas Stars are an organization where they can make it to a Western Conference final. I can see Dallas making it to the conference final, but am I confident in their ability to be a Stanley Cup final team? No. The answer is no. So that was option B with the Dallas Stars. And, situation-wise, this is a team that could be a very valid option. I don't see it happening, but it is a plausible option for Dallas to go all the way. Now, option C is an established champion. Option C has been a team that's kind of had a rough start this year. They have not been as electrifying, and they have not been as dominant as we have seen in the past. But more importantly, when it comes to the situation in the Western Conference, this is a team that is battling right now with Winnipeg. They're battling with Dallas. And this is a team that really could be a solid situation there. And, of course, I'm talking about the Colorado Avalanche. Colorado Avalanche, this is a team that's been there and done it. Jared Bednar, Stanley Cup winning champion as a head coach. There is a good amount of talent from that team 2 years ago that went to that Stanley Cup and beat Tampa Bay. But when you've actually watched, and I'm saying when you've actually studied and watched what they have done, man, oh man, has it been a really weird situation when it comes to there. I mean, everybody wants to stop and analyze it, and go ahead. I mean, it's fine. But when you actually watch the Colorado Avalanche play, it always feels like there's something missing this season. Like, this season just seems a bit off for Colorado. I mean, just take, for example, their game against the Washington Capitals that happened recently. This was a Colorado Avalanche team that had a solid first period, right? First period did really good. The second period had a decent part. But then the third period, they looked a bit sluggish at that point. And that's actually something that we have noticed with Colorado is that, first period, They're strong. They look great. They shoot the puck, put it in the back of the net. Their defense is solid. They keep guys out of the offensive zone on the back end. But the third period has been a question mark. No doubt about it. The Colorado Avalanche in the last period of the game, those last 20 minutes of hockey, it seems like they just sputter. Like they go into neutral and they just hope that the game ends with them in the win column. That's the reason why they're behind Dallas. It's the reason why they're behind Winnipeg right now. Now, this has nothing to do with their all-star goaltender and Alexander Georgiev, but you have to look at what the roster assembled has been. And they made those moves this offseason to add some more players to it. Everyone keep in mind, Miles Wood was brought over to be a good acquisition for them. They brought over guys like Jack Johnson. They brought him over once again to be part of the Colorado Avalanche organization. You even had guys like Ryan Johansson this offseason that got brought over to Colorado. Jonathan Drouin. You had Ross Colton. Like the roster makeup has changed a little bit from 2 years ago, but you still have the main core here in Colorado. You still have Sam Girard. You still have guys like Nathan McKinnon, Cale Makar. You even have Mikko Rantanen, Devin Tays. This is a Colorado Avalanche team that the core is still alive and still kicking in Colorado. And as long as you have the coach in Jared Bednar, who has been one of the best coaches in the NHL over the last couple of years, you still have a chance. All right. How plausible is it for Colorado, who, right, like I said, right now, Winnipeg's around them, Dallas is around them, Colorado kind of like, here, and the other two are up here at this moment. But how plausible is it for Colorado to make a run? It really depends on who they face in the playoffs. Now, looking at the actual matchups and actually studying the playoffs at this moment in time, the Colorado Avalanche and Winnipeg Jets are slotted to face each other. Dallas, like I said, is a few points ahead of Colorado at this moment, but anything can happen. It's still regular season games to play. But Colorado and Winnipeg would be an interesting series, just like I mentioned on a show from a while ago that Vegas versus Edmonton could happen. That's what, could be seen done. Vegas versus Edmonton. You have Colorado versus Winnipeg. And then when you actually study who the wild card teams could be, obviously the LA Kings are a part of it. Obviously, the LA Kings are a part of that situation there. And then you have the Central, which has, a few teams that are involved there. But, it's undecided what's going on. St. Louis, Nashville, when it comes to that right there. But, LA, let's just say for argument's sake, all right, let's say that LA takes on Vancouver, okay? That would mean that Dallas would have to go up against somebody that would be probably from the Central. So, it's probably going to be matchups and matchup to matchup. Maybe it'll be Dallas versus LA. Maybe it'll be, Vancouver versus whoever comes out of the Central, Nashville, St. Louis, whoever that is. But when we're talking about how plausible it is for Colorado to end up being in the playoffs and winning the Western Conference Finals and making it out of the West into the Stanley Cup Final, it is plausible depending on who they face. Now, if they go up against Dallas in the first round, for argument's sake, I would say no. If they go up against anybody that's probably not Winnipeg or probably not one of the teams that's below Colorado on that spectrum here, I would look at the Colorado Avalanche and say, you know what, maybe it won't pan out. But if you have the Avalanche versus Jets, similar to my argument for the Golden Knights versus Oilers in the last video we did, then I could see a plausible situation where Colorado takes on Winnipeg, they beat them in the first round, and then we would assume that Dallas would take care of business and beat whoever they have to face. Let's just say LA, for example. Dallas takes on LA, they beat them, they get the job done. Then you have Colorado versus Dallas, and that would be arguably one of the best series in the playoffs at that point. And I actually could see Colorado actually finishing the story and getting the job done if need be. So, Colorado Avalanche, they are option C for a reason. It is possible for them to go out and actually win the Western Conference because we've seen them do it before. They have some pieces. They brought over some new guys for sure. But the Colorado Avalanche, plausible, yes, to be a Western Conference final winner. But option D, and your host, Ian Rachiele's pick to come out of the Western Conference final, this is a team that I picked at the beginning of the season, a team that I had facing the Carolina Hurricanes in the Stanley Cup final. I'm not going to sway from it. I'm not going to change my pick. This is going to be option D, and it is who you see behind me. It is your Vegas Golden Knights. The Vegas Golden Knights, yes, they've had a rough patch as of late. They win a few games. They lose a few games. We get it. Right now, they're battling, like I said, with Edmonton, those Edmonton, LA, Vancouver, a few points up. We get it. But if Vegas goes up against Edmonton, like it's projected, like I could see happening, then Vegas beats Edmonton. And then a second round, you go up against Vancouver. That would be a solid given 7-game series, but I could actually see Vegas beating out Vancouver. I could actually see them being out physical, being a team that's tough and gritty, and more importantly, they would actually get past Thatcher Demko because we actually saw it a few years ago in the playoffs, that second round matchup, Vancouver versus Vegas. So the Western Conference final, let's just say that it is Colorado versus Vegas, all right? Let's just say that's the Western Conference final like I predicted back in September. This would be the best series to watch. Hands down, the best series to watch would be this matchup right here. But you know what I could actually see happening? What I could actually see as a plausible situation here? Whoever is in net will win that series. If it's Aiden Hill, if it's Logan Thompson, you're going up against Georgiev, this is going to be a goaltender matchup there. It's all about momentum, but it's mostly in the crease in the Western Conference Finals. And I have more confidence, and I actually have more stability in the Golden Knights goaltending in terms of long terms, in terms of playoffs, because we saw it last year with Aiden Hill and with Brezois in the first round. So the Vegas Golden Knights, I see them winning the Western Conference, them going on to the Stanley Cup final, and then watching whoever wins out of the Eastern Conference between Florida and Carolina. Okay, so that's my Eastern Conference final pick. Would be Carolina versus Florida at that moment in time. So this is who is going to win the Western Conference, who is going to be the team to represent the West in the Stanley Cup Finals. I've given you the options at this point here on Vegas Hockey Hub. Option A, the team that's leading right now, the Vancouver Canucks. The option B, the Central Division winner, a team that's been pretty solid this season in Dallas. Option C, a team has won a cup as of recently, and that is the Colorado Avalanche. And then option D, and your host pick to win the Western Conference and going back to the Stanley Cup Finals for the second year in a row, your Vegas Golden Knights. So this is Vegas Hockey Hub. I'm your host, Ian Rachiele. And until next time, continue watching hockey, go support junior hockey, and go Knights, go.